All right, welcome to lesson 7.3 on human population growth. Our learning objective today is that you be able to describe the human population growth curve and the ecological footprint idea. So let's talk about human population growth first. So the human population has been increasing rapidly. This isn't seen in every single country, but if we look at the human population as a whole, our population is continuing to grow and grow and grow. And even though the last couple hundred years has changed a lot, we'll see a graph that shows that. So a major reason for the increasing human population growth is a lowering of the death rate due to control of disease and improved food production. So we talked about limiting factors on populations, and that's what holds populations down to a carrying capacity. Before all of our technological improvements, humans were held to those same standards, but we have kind of artificially raised our carrying capacity by eliminating some of those limiting factors when we look at the human population as a whole. That can be different in different countries, but disease is a limiting factor. We have modern medicine and hospitals to help limit the effects of disease. Limited resources is another limiting factor. Limited food, limited clean water. We have technology that has improved the production of food that is nutrient dense and everything. And then we have increased technology that has cleaned our water at a faster rate than nature would be able to naturally. So we have artificially removed some of those limiting factors, which has then raised that carrying capacity. So when we talk about human population growth, we'll talk about doubling time. And there is a formula for that, and that is 70 divided by the annual rate of increase. And then whatever that equals is how many years. So if the annual rate of increase is 2% right now for humans, that means that our population will double in 35 years. And that may seem like kind of a long time, but if we have 8 billion, 9 billion people on Earth, in 35 years, there could be 15, 16, 17 billion people. That is a lot of people. So if we look at the historical human population curve, the human population growth curve has been a long lag phase followed by a sharply rising exponential growth phase that is still rapidly increasing. So the current growth phase that humans are in is going to be still in exponential growth. We could see that with this growth curve right here. So in one of our previous lessons, we talked about those different phases of growth. We have the lag phase followed by an exponential growth phase where it's going up very sharply. And then eventually we should hit a deceleration phase before it evens out. We do not see that trend happening anywhere. So 2011, we reached 7 billion people. We are now at 8 billion people. And we are expected to be at 10 billion people by the year 2050. And that could increase even more if our population growth rate doesn't go down or if it goes up. So if we look at the doubling time for human population, so years to double the human population down here. So if our rate of annual increase is 4%, that's going to be 18 years. If our rate of annual increase is 0.5%, that's going to be in 133 years. So we can just see as our rate of annual increase goes down, so does the years to double the human population. So human population characteristics and implications. The world can be divided into two segments based on economic development. And we've talked about these a little bit already. And that's going to be more developed countries versus less developed countries. More developed countries typically have a per capita income exceeding 40,000. That's going to be Europe, Canada, the US, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand. They have a combined population of 1.27 billion people. And they're relatively stable populations, meaning they're not drastically decreasing or not drastically increasing. Some of these have decreasing populations. Some of them have increasing populations to the point where they've kind of evened out and there's not a lot of growth happening in those more developed countries. They're expected to grow between 3.5% between 2020 and 2050. Then on the other side, we have less developed countries. They have a per capita income less than 15,000. And per capita is like per 1,000 people. Nearly 700 million live on less than $1.90 per day. And they have high population growth rates. They're expected to grow by 32% between 2020 and 2050 to reach 6.8 billion and will constitute about 87% of the world's people. And that's almost every country that wasn't listed on the previous slide. So human population growth is tied directly to economic development and is a contributing factor to nearly all environmental problems. The more economically developed a country is, the lower the population growth rate, because those humans, as they become adults, don't need their children taking care of them. They don't need their children working in the family business or working the land or whatever it may be for them to be able to survive. We are in economically developed countries, we are typically able to survive more as individuals and rely less on having a lot of kids to kind of survive. So population density relates the size of a population to available resources. So high population density, lots of people in a small little place, there's going to be a lot of resource competition. But countries with abundant resources can sustain higher population densities than resource poor countries, because there's just more resources to support those people. And the degree of technological development and affluence is also significant. People in highly developed countries consume a huge amounts of resources, even if they're not resources from their own country. So affluence is defined as people in highly developed countries that consume huge amounts of resources. And then technology is defined as, or is explained as, technology used is an important contributor to environmental impact. So firewood, that's a form of technology to heat a house. Firewood for heat can lead to deforestation. Coal-fired power plants can contribute to pollution. Wind and solar energy lower environmental impact. And then the environmental footprint concept is what we're going to end this lesson on today, is the environmental impact of highly developed regions is often felt in distant places where goods are produced. So your environmental footprint is where your impact can be seen. The ecological footprint is a measure of the land area required to provide the resources and absorb the wastes of a population. So we can look at it as a whole, we can look at it on like more of an individual level. And most of the more developed countries of the world have a much larger ecological footprint that is represented by their land area. Japan is one of the biggest examples of that. Japan is a tiny, tiny little island, little slip of land, and they are super developed, but they have very few resources. Its ecological footprint is 5 times larger than its locally available resources. They have to get those resources from somewhere, so they're importing them from other places. The ecological footprint of the US is 1.5 times locally available resources. All right, if you have any questions about this one, let me know, and I will see you in the next one.